Welcome back to Friesland. Our lance has moved up to the buildings I mentioned in our last briefing post, ready to clear the area out of any enemy air contact so that the ComStar Special Forces team or the VIPs can move in to clear it. At least that's the narrative. I just want to apologize, first of all. I did have Anti-Cheese come on and record a commentary for this video, but completely my fault. I messed up how it picked up his audio, and he came through really distorted and quiet, and I just didn't think it sounded really well. I'm sorry about that, Anti-Cheese. I promise I'll get you back for the next video. So I'm just going to record these myself, and we'll have a co-commentator for all the videos after this. I'm going away for business, so I wanted to get this video out this weekend rather than waiting until another week before we can get a video out. So the mission's just started here. You can see that we've got a new type of sensor contact. That's because Lionheart has an improved tactics skill, and we can also see from the initiative marker that we're up against 3 lights at a medium. My idea is that this is sort of a response team that are moving in. They're in the area, and they're coming to make sure that we don't access this building. It's quite an interesting battlefield, this as well, because it's quite vertical, and if the enemy don't have jump jets, the only way they can get to us is up this road. So my idea here is really trying to set up a wall of guys in that forest where they've got a damage reduction of 25% and just try and hold back the enemy. And really my plan for this turn is just to run everyone, sprint them in, and so they stop taking damage. Because what I really need to do is not make the mistakes I made in the last couple of games, and just make sure we take as little damage as possible in this game so that we can move forward to the next match, which will be a continuation and carry the armor over. You can see our first enemy mech's been revealed. It's a Locust 1S. I have to say I like light mechs, and I do think the Locust looks really good in this game. The 1S is just as dangerous as pretty much every other Locust mech, probably more to its pilot than to opposing forces. The Locust 1S has a ton of SRM ammo and only 2 SRM2s, so it's going to be carrying around a bomb in its chest for pretty much the entire game. Here I'm just moving the Firestarter down, building tons of evasion and getting it in the forest. Just to go over it again, a shield with a white square means a mech is braced and takes 50% reduced damage from the front and sides, and a shield with a not filled center is 25% damage reduction from not front and sides, and that's mainly from the forests. And yeah, the other thing I'm doing here is, I realized this after watching back the last video, but Lionheart is really terrible at indirect fire. Even with his tactics boost, he's only, I mean, okay, this Locust has really high evasion, but he's getting such a huge penalty to fire indirect. I'm going to be trying to take direct fire shots from him from a distance as much as possible. That way we'll actually hit with the LRMs and he'll be able to contribute a lot harder. So now we can see all 4 enemy mechs. They've got 2 in the water, 1 coming up the hill and 1 sort of on the other side of this river. And you can see, yeah, I mentioned it before, the tactics skill is letting us see that these are mechs now rather than unknown contents when they reach Lionheart's sensor range. And this is why I sprinted last turn, just to build up that evasion as much as possible. So we've got 2 new contacts this turn. Another Locust. It's actually a Locust 1M or 1L. I can't remember exactly the classification, but it's the LRM5 Locust, so it's got 2 LRM5s. And we've got a Commando 1B, which we'll check out in a second. This move from this Locust, I think, was pretty foolhardy, because it's now in close combat range of the Shadowhawk, piloted by Stovepipe today. Just in case no one's sure who's in what mech, Lionheart's in the Trebuchet, Stovepipe is in the Shadowhawk, Nasir is in his Urban Mech, and Inspector's covering for Figment in the Firestarter. So yeah, you can see the Commando 1B there with medium laser, SRM2, and large laser. Basically, the idea was that these 2 mechs were supposed to hang back a bit and snipe, but that's not quite how the AI played them. And you notice here that I've got a 75% chance to hit, even though that Locust has 4 evasion. And that's because melee attacks come off piloting skill and ignore evasion. And that's that Locust. Because that Locust has taken a melee hit, it's now unsteady, which means it loses all of its stacks of evasion, which makes it just in a world of hurt in a second. 80% chance from the AC-10. You might notice I tweaked the AC-10 animation a little bit just to make it look a bit scarier. And that Locust has now lost both torsos. I'm being very cautious here about making sure that everybody stays within forests. I don't mind making a smaller move and not building up a lot of evasion because I get another turn next. I get to activate mostly just evasion shenanigans. And there goes the Locust, turn 2 dead. So whilst light mechs are really good in this game, you can't play them like that. The AI just threw that Locust away. But we're kind of simulating that these are green pilots, so I'm not too concerned about it. And here I'm just trying to make sure I've got a direct fire shot on the Commando. You can see there I've got 80% chances to hit the Commando and 40% chances to hit the Locust. Partly because of its evasion, but partially because it's an indirect fire shot as well. That's a much better showing from Lionheart already. I think only 2 of those missiles missed. And I don't think replacing the LRM-15 for an LRM-10 in his left hand has really had that much of a bad effect on what he's doing. Though we do probably want to get that LRM-15 back in there as soon as possible. And that's a respectable amount of damage from a 20-ton mech. So Shadowhawk's doing its job, it's tanking, which it hasn't really done in previous missions, but the problem is it's already taken a reasonable amount of damage, and there's still 3 mechs on the field, and I know that there's going to be another wave of mechs coming once we get the ComStar team into this building. Obviously that's going to happen off camera. And I've just got to remember my reservation. Interesting that the Commando decided to fire the medium laser and the SRM there and not the large laser. Or did I just miss it? And we're fluffing it so that we do get an ammo refill between missions in this one, so I'm not as concerned about using up all of our ammo. It's just very restrictive with the urban mech. You can see I'm just really struggling to find even a place to put it and get a good decent shot. I'm thinking about jumping up there and shooting down, but really I want to build as much evasion as possible and get a decent shot. I'm hoping here that this might also help me reveal what this last mech in the background is, which is the medium mech. Well, those are pretty good chances to hit. And we can strip the armor from the right torso of that Commando, which is pretty nice. And our last mech is a Blackjack BJ-1X, which is a interesting variant that replaces the AC-2s with 4 flamers. And that's the AI taking a speculative shot, which I did a lot of in the last game, where I'm just firing to basically reduce the strip of evasion. So you can see here it's dynamically updated the model, just like in MechWarrior Online, to show the flamers rather than the AC-2s, which is really nice. So it means if we do make any significant changes to the appearance of our mechs, they will actually reflect that on the model. I decide that what I really want to do is just finish this Commander off. And Lionheart's quite happy to help. There goes the large laser, which is the scariest part of that Commander's armament. The large laser's not really in a good place in the game at the moment. I think I'm going to talk to the guys on Discord about finding a decent way to make it a viable weapon. Because the AC-10 and the PPC kind of overshadow it quite considerably. And it fills that same sort of niche as the other 2 weapons. Just that it doesn't really stand out compared to the others. The PPC has very long range, does really good damage, and it sort of hits the enemy with a kind of EMP effect, reducing their chance to hit on the next turn. And the AC-10 does a ton of damage, has good range, and does really good kinetic damage as well. PPC does a little bit of kinetic damage. The large laser just generates a lot of heat. And yeah, just trying to find a nice spot for the urban mech that gives it evasion, gives it cover, and gives it a decent shot. It's one of those situations where you get 2 out of the 3. Which is why I'm just guarding him. Bit worried about the fire starter here. The Locust's doing an okay job. The Commando, I think, is in a really bad position. And here I go for a death from above, which I thought would be a great way to finish this Commando off. Missed with one of them. But if you look at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen, you can see the damage to the Firestarter's legs. And we get a pilot kill on the Commando. Unfortunately, it's a center torso destruction as well, so it's a scrapped mech. But with that damage to those legs, I can't really afford to expose the Firestarter for the rest of the game, and the next game as well, because I can't afford to get the mech legged. So, although the death from above looked really cool and was very effective at killing the Commando quickly, I've kind of wrecked the mech. AI issues focus, which means it's got 95% chances to hit with all of its weapons this turn, and ignores evasion and all armor bonuses. And that's a pretty nasty, it's a 100 damage alpha strike. Well, not an alpha strike, but 100 damage strike that it can consistently do because of the heat sinks from a decent range. I decide at this point, who cares about the Locust, let's move on and deal with the Blackjack. Or do I switch? No, I see that I've got the 80s on the Blackjack, and I think I take that shot on the Locust. So this area next to the Shadowhawk, just while I'm taking the shot, there's a darker area of water. So that's actually untraversable. It's deep water, whereas the rest of the water in the sort of river area you can cross. So the darker area is basically land you can't cross. And that was a really good LRM shot. Lionheart's made 3 fantastic shots this game. And there's an okay AC-10 shot. I'm thinking about it. I decided to jump forward to make it a bit better, get the 80%. Just checking my torso twisting to make sure I've got as much front armor facing the blackjack as possible. Great shot. Unfortunately, that Locust now has no armor in any location but its head, but it's still alive and it's still a threat. And here I'm just wanting to get rid of the Locust, I think, as soon just to get it out of the game. So Stovepipe goes in for his first kill, I think, of the campaign. And that's it. So GoonLance so far has performed fantastically. We've wiped out 3 light mechs, pretty much 1 each turn. There's only 1 enemy left. We haven't taken a lot of damage. We're in a really good position to move into the next wave of enemies. I'm just waiting for the AI to expose itself. I think it's moving up to use the flamers. Firestarter takes a few hits. I'm a bit worried about those legs, but I'm hoping we can just end it this turn. Which is why I don't pressure up with the Firestarter first. I like that little ledge. Kind of like Pride Rock. Doing a lot of jumping with the Shadowhawk this game has actually put me into a bad position. I've jumped with it pretty much every turn, again, to build up evasion, but I've ended up in a situation where I can't actually fire any weapons without overheating it. That little beep you hear when I turn a weapon on is the game warning me I'm going to overheat the mech if I fire. So I can't find anything to use, and I just end up racing. Which is fine, because he's sort of the biggest target on the board, and if I just set it up... If I thought about it, I could have set it up so that it was the only one he could shoot at, and it would be actually been very difficult to hit, with the 50% penalty to hit from the evasion, and then the 50% damage reduction. Good shooting there from Spectre. That was a head hit. Head hits are an automatic pilot injury, and the pilots that we're all playing with, my pilots and the AI's pilots, together only have 2 injuries. Jimmums, our MVP from the last game, now has 3 health because he's got 3 guts, but no one in this game can take it. I think there's 1 enemy who can in the next wave, but no one in this one can take 2 head hits. Or take a head hit and fall over, because falling over is an automatic pilot hit as well. Falling over is a very lethal way to kill a pilot in this game. And just look at the chances to hit the trebuchet is getting. This is how I should have been using it. Nice. Again, only like 1 missile miss there. One of the things we've seen as well from more recent videos from Harebrained Schemes from later versions of the game is they've really updated the graphics for a lot of stuff, especially the VFX for SRMs and LRMs. They've got really nice smoke trails that hang around for a while. They look really, really good. It's also some of the autocannons fire like the Warthog's main gun in real life, the AC-10. Is that right, the AC-10? No, I'm thinking of the autocannon 10. Not the Warthog. But the Warthog, it's that Burt type weapon. And yeah, I think what I'm doing here is just getting the Firestarter out of dodge. I do not want it to be fired at. So I drop it down to this little gully where it can't be seen by the Blackjack. I don't mind if the Urban Mech tanks a little bit this turn, and it's the most likely target for the Blackjack here. Especially since the Blackjack's lost an arm. It's also very unsteady. A couple of hits on the leg, it's a bit annoying. That's actually the left leg, but it's the right leg's the one that had the damage while we were in transit. And then I just want to finish things off with the Shadowhawk here. Sadly, I can't get a death from above attack. So I just run around, try not to generate too much heat. Almost. So now he's unsteady. Taking enough kinetic damage will knock him over, which is a really important mechanic. Again, I'm just running into the water, get a bit of heat reduction. This is over. And yeah, it was quite an easy fight. I initially, when I first attempted to record this, But it didn't go so well, and I didn't think it made for that interesting a resolution, so I've dumbed it down a little bit. But we do have a more scary Op 4 in the next part of the mission that's coming up just after this Blackjack is killed. It's a nice little spot there for someone to hide from enemies up on top of the hill, just under that cliff face there, which is where I decide to put the urban mech. No, I decide to go for a small laser shot on the urban mech, that's right. Because small lasers get so little showing, and they're great. I'm thinking about this way too much. I'm remembering the Griffin in the last game where it did the death from above and wrecked the fire starter. I don't want a repeat of that situation. And that's enough kinetic damage to knock down the Blackjack, which should kill this pilot because of what I was speaking about before, but obviously he must be the pilot I picked that has 3 guts rather than 2. So now that he's knocked down, I can make cold shots, and he's also been knocked down 1 in the initiative meter. So I decide to just stomp on him with a Shadowhawk. Which takes out the right torso, and then all that's left is for Lionheart to get a kill. One of the things I'm paying attention to is the chevrons around a mech. The gold ones mean a weapon is in optimum range, and the white chevrons mean a weapon is not in optimum range. Unfortunately, there isn't a breakpoint where both the medium lasers and the LRMs are both in optimum range, but it's close. And that is the end of mission 1. So in the background, time passes. You'll see it's nighttime when we transition into the next part of the mission. So we can assume that ComStar have been in the building, they've done their work for the day, and we're getting ready to pull out, at which point we pick up some new contacts. So we're moving into that time now. You can see the Lance have pulled back up onto the cliffs. Lionheart's kind of posing there on top of the cliff face. I've copied over all of the armor damage we took from the last game, so you can see Inspector's icon is already showing as yellow because his legs are fully exposed. The others will show up on their paper doll as looking pristine, but they just have less armor in all of those locations. They'll go from white to yellow much faster. And game starts the way they usually do, with just both of us playing reserve tag. Now I'm forced to make a move. Once we get to reserve level 1, both sides have to do something. So what I decide to do is pull the Shadowhawk back, which will break sensor range with the enemy. So we lose them as sensor contacts, and that means the enemy will now be operating in the fog of war without me knowing what's going on. What it also does is it resets the initiative meter. So when we break contact again, we'll go back into doing initiative style gameplay. As you see, the initiative meter's gone from the top of the screen. And in a second, I just decide to brace here. I'm forcing the enemy to come to me.
Standing by. What's up? Yup. I'll just stay put and keep things cool.
One of the reasons I decided to do this was just to show the game at night as well as during day. I used sunset last time. This is twilight. I quite like all the lights on the mechs, and LRMs and PPCs look really good at nighttime.
New sensor contact.
So now we're back into the initiative system. And you can see the enemy have 2 lights and 2 medium mechs.
Got it. Stay and put for now.
And again, back into reserve hockey. This is just how most games tend to start. Neither player really wants to make the first turn, make the first move once we've engaged each other.
Yeah.
And here's my continual problem with the urban mech. It's just so slow, even with the jump jets.
Go there, boy.
My thinking here is I'll sprint the fire starter up, I'll make sure it's built a ton of evasion so that nobody can hit it with a shot, and I'll reveal what the enemy mechs are. So here I'm trying to find a good spot. I settle on there. I've got line of sight, just to see what it is. Sprinting obviously uses up 2 actions, so I don't get a shoot if I sprint. Detect a third mech. See, we saw our first mech there. Those of you who played Mech War Online might recognize it. Those of you who played a little Battletech and not played Mech War Online probably won't, but it's a Centurion. It's a Centurion D? No, it's an AH, I think is the classification. Just an A. LRM 10, AC 10, 2 medium lasers. It's a pretty good sort of trooper mech. Great thing to build a lance around. I thought it'd make for a decent challenge with this fight. Because it's braced and it's at long range, Lionheart's not going to have a great shot at it. I just decide to shoot at it with indirect fire, because what I'm really trying to do is just put a bit of damage on it, sandpaper it a bit, and get rid of that evasion for more fire from the rest of the lance later in the turn. And I have to say, indirect fire LRMs do look really good at night. Here comes another mech. And it's a Locust 1E. So yeah, more Locusts, I'm sorry. But the Locust 1E is actually a really scary light mech. It's the one that totaled the Trebuchet in the first game we played. And it has 2 medium lasers, 2 small lasers, which is a 90 damage alpha strike on a mech that will not overheat doing it and can move really, really fast to build up a ton of evasion. Do something I've never really done with the Shadowhawk here and actually take a long-range shot, because it is got a build that's good for long-range combat. Not amazing, but it can... Like I mentioned before, it is kind of the AK-47 of the 30-25 battlefield. It can attack at any range and do okay. And there's another Locust 1E. So we've got sort of a wolf pack of really scary Locusts if they get in behind us. And then we know there's 2 other medium mechs, or possibly a heavy mech with a tactical, skilled pilot piloting it to bring him down the evasion meter. The initiative meter, sorry.
Something I can do.
I decided to take the 65% shot.
I got him.
Let's pay off.
I tell you what, we better check my target.
And then I decided to get the fire starter out of there before it starts getting shot at. What I'm trying to do is sprint it and get line of sight on the mechs, but I can't find a location that I can do that safely. So I spent a couple of seconds just thinking about it. And one of the things I am doing, and you'll see, is I am thinking about my moves a lot more. I really do need to give this AI a lot more respect than I have been giving it. I just can't afford the fire starter to take any fire, even with a lot of evasion. In the end, I decided to reserve it for now because it does have 4 stacks, which is 20% chance to hit penalty.
Standing by. I will.
It's really nasty. I maybe should have held back and not fired yet, but I've got good shots even if they're not going to do a lot of damage. And now I realize I have to move the fire starter, but I've used it to give me line of sight for those shots. Now I'll pull back and break line of sight so the enemy can't return fire. So that's some pretty good scouting really from the fire starter, and the fact that it wasn't really in any danger. And yeah, at this point I remember Anti-Cheese was kind of talking about my failure condition. That's really if any of the buildings get damaged. And the way they would get damaged is either from fire shots that miss, so any SRMs or RMs that might hit them, or a mech running through the buildings. It looks like the Locusts are kind of thinking about doing a big flank. You can tell it's a Locust just because the distance has moved.
Waiting for the right way.
And the Centurion is pushing through the forest. And just decides to use its 2 lasers, which is really interesting. I don't know why it didn't fire anything else that turn. It's not running hot. It's got a decent shot there, and it hit with both of them.
What's up, Commander?
Again, trying to find a shot that's in the forest and gives me line of sight is just impossible. And you can see me shaking the mouse there, a bit frustrated. This is probably a bit risky. But at the same time, I can't afford to just sit back and not do anything. I have to be proactive, not reactive. What I need, though, is line of sight. So let's see what that is. Let's make sure that is the Centurion, is what I was thinking. And see, I was wrong. It's actually the Locust, which makes sense how it fired. And I think that move there really demonstrates a really impressive thing about how far the fire starter can jump. And it's got enough evasion that it should be okay to tank any fire coming from the last 2 mechs. Yeah, it doesn't even give it a serious attack. It just fires 1 medium laser to strip a stack of evasion. So So at the moment things are looking pretty good, but we haven't really engaged yet. It's still just sort of a skirmish. The Centurion's moved back, another Locust moved back. The fourth mech we haven't seen yet hasn't really done anything, and this Locust is acting as their forward scout. I have to say, State Fight Team is great shooting this game. And now we finally see the last mech in the enemy lance. Ooh. So there goes the side torso on the urban mech. Thankfully it's the small laser and not the AC-10. And he just got attacked by a mech that I thought was a bit of a joke. Again, I seem to not like a lot of generalist media mechs. I'll look at it in a second. I was kind of really surprised by it, which is why I don't do my usual zoom in on it. But that's an Enforcer 4R, which has a large laser, an AC-10 and a small laser. It's a really good support, just sort of in the back line, taking shots. Not really tanking though. And I realize I have to do something about it. So we get that for a great opening salvo that only misses 2 missiles. It makes him unsteady straight away. There we go, now we have a look at it. I quite like what they've done with the helmet on the Enforcer. And I do like the large laser mount on the left arm. I think the small laser is either on the left arm or head mounted. I can't remember. This is a move I was thinking about doing earlier in the turn. I now decide to do because that Locust hasn't got any evasion left. And unfortunately, it's the second miss in 2 turns. Get back to a new turn. This Locust that was doing an epic flank has now decided to go back the way it came, wasting more turns. So it's been out of the fight now for 3 turns. I get a turn now before it gets to do anything. And this thought process may be a bit difficult to understand, but what I'm thinking here is I'm engaged with an Enforcer and a Centurion. I need to get these Locusts out of the way. So what I'm thinking is if I just do a melee attack here, I'm going to kill this Locust. But I'm not really paying attention to the Firestarter's condition. I'm not really paying attention to its legs. And I've also just exposed my back to the Centurion. That was probably just on the edge of killing the Locust with the machine guns in the back there. It runs back, takes a shot, which does unfortunately hit and strips off all the rear torso armor on the Inspector. Sorry, on the Firestarter. I decide I need to finish off this Locust now. Thinking about, is this too big of a risk to take? But I decide to go for it. We need to wipe this thing out. We're taking too much damage. Oh, I decided to shoot the Centurion, sorry. Good shot though, strips the torso armor off the Centurion. I believe that's where the LRM-10 ammo is stored as well on the right torso. It might be the AC-10 ammo. He returns fire at the urban mech. And he just survives the fire. That's the center torso stripped on the urban mech, so I have to be really careful. Trebuchet needs to do some work. It's got good shots there on the Centurion, but I'm trying to find a nice spot for it. Best shot is from where it's standing though. Side of him. Here's a scary Enforcer. I don't mind the Trebuchet taking a hit at this point. It's completely pristine up till now.
These guys are serious, Commander.
And you know, the response that we've got to this little mission, this is more than just a fast response. There's obviously something in these buildings that they don't want us getting our hands on. At this point, I really need to now commit the Shadowhawk to the fight. I decided that Centurion is my primary target. We'll take the Centurion out. Great shot there by Stovepipe. And now the enemy gets to use its Locust. But it decides to use the faraway Locust first, which really isn't in the best position, although medium lasers are still decent guns. And there goes the center torso on the CS Urban mech. Which means that mech is scrap. So we're now down a man. You might be wondering what I'm doing here, but I'm hoping the melee attack will knock over the Centurion. because it's already unsteady, and also open center torso. Crit at a medium laser. We've got a pilot hit as well, so a crit on a medium laser just reduces the accuracy of it for a turn. If it takes another crit, then it gets disabled. This also pushes the Centurion back in the initiative order, meaning it's not going to activate when my medium mechs do, and I can make cold shots on it and hopefully just wipe it out before it gets a chance to act again. The other Locust thankfully runs away, so the Firestarter isn't dead yet. And I think I decide here just to try and finish off the Centurion. Taking an indirect fire shot, cold shot I think for the center torso. Yeah. So we basically traded our Urban Knight for a Centurion, which whilst not great, is a trade I'm willing to take. However, the Enforcer is now focused, which means it's got 95% chances to hit. And it wrecks the left-hand side of the Firestarter. I'm just having a look at what he's lost. I really need to get him out of the thick of things now. However, the Enforcer's put itself in a position where my Shadowhawk can start chasing it down. So Stovepipe moves in for another attack. Which is pretty terrible, actually. I don't think he hit with anything with a medium laser. And then here's the absolute danger. The Locust moves in for a close combat Alpha Strike. And that's the end of the Firestarter. And I was seriously shaking my head at this point. I really messed up. The way I'm playing it is if a mech gets its center torso destroyed, it's scrap. So we've just lost our 2 light mechs. So what I'm really thinking at this point is I kind of need to make sure that these opposing forces are salvageable. And there's a pretty terrible shot with the LRM, so 50% chances to hit, but I'm now getting a little bit defensive. I don't really want to expose the Trebuchet to too much fire. And the other problem I've got is the Trebuchet is about to overheat if I fire both of our weapons. Which I still haven't realized actually as I focus. No, it's actually dead on. So it's actually a bug where I won't take overheat damage here because we're right on the overheat point. So it's not you overheat on this number and over, it's you overheat over this number. We've hit the number for the, yeah, it's just a small thing. That was a really lucky shot from the Enforcer, just straight on the center torso of the Shadowhawk. I can't quite get close enough to engage him in close combat this turn, but he is unsteady. Looking at my chevrons again, trying to find that perfect position to fire from so that I'm getting no penalties to hit with all the weapons. And I'm trying to change my facing up a little bit as well, just to make it a little bit harder for him to get around and shoot at the front again. And yeah, I know I keep firing the LRM5 when it's got penalties to hit, but he's carrying a ton of it. So we've still got these 2 Locusts in our back area as well. That Locust up on the hill is quite badly damaged. The one down there is pristine. And finally, I can make the melee attack I've been wanting to take all game. The Enforcer is unsteady, so this attack, if it hits, will knock him over. Major damage to his leg, and he's down. So that's an initiative down, -1 initiative, and of course a pilot injury. Trebuchet can now make a cold shot, and I believe I go for a cold shot on the head. We've got optimum range for the LRMs. Unfortunately, you can see he's running really, really hot. Which is the red gauge, if you haven't realized that. I've got enough heat to fire the LRM-15, and I do go for the headshot, hoping I can get a pilot kill, and then just pick up the Enforcer pretty easily with the minimal damage. Every missile hits pretty much over the center torso. And that's mainly due to the angle we're firing from. It does take that into account. Enforcer gets back up, and I think it runs away. Yeah. When a mech stands back up, it does get really major penalties to hit, so taking shots isn't that effective. And the Enforcer doesn't have great close combat damage because it hasn't got hands, unlike the Shadowhawk, which is 2 battle fists. And that Locust continues to be a pest. stripping the armor off the Shadowhawk's leg. And the other locust is unknown. We don't know where it is, so it could even be in among the buildings. Okay, we haven't got its sensor range, but it could be actually attacking the ComStar staff that are there. Are we actually going to miss on a close combat attack there? I bet you Jims wouldn't have missed that attack. I really needed that to hit. Because that is some serious damage, and I don't know how we didn't lose the leg. We should have lost the leg there. So one of the things we've kind of let the enemy do here is pull us away from our mission objective. Because now we're quite far away from the building, so we're getting close to the stage where they're actually at a sensor range. Really worried about overheating now, so I go for the lasers, hoping for the leg shot. Which I do get, but I don't... Oh, I do manage to destroy it, so there's a knockdown again. And this pilot, again, he has 3 guts, because he takes... Oh no, there we go, pilot killed. So that leg shot was very fortuitous. If I had knocked that mech down and killed that pilot, we would probably be in a much worse position than we are now. We still have 2 locusts to kill, but I think we can do it without losing anything else. But you can see there, the locust was able to move and build up 3 stacks of evasion and shoot, which is pretty scary. And the Shadowhawk's not in the greatest situation. And now we know for a fact the locust is in among the buildings.
I'm here.
Looking at my facing here, getting my right hand side on his side. The paper doll in the left corner is flipped, by the way, so his right is on the right hand side of the picture. So that's the side I want to disclose. I think 2 missiles hit there, and nothing else. We're still running really, really hard on the trebuchet. And this is why I'm really excited, actually, because in so many Battletech and Mech Warrior games, the light mechs really just... You might start out with some light mechs, but it pretty much becomes a game of let's acquire as many assault mechs as we can as quickly as possible. And I think that light mechs have a niche here that they can actually survive in and be useful, especially with speed. Maybe it's more as harassers and long-range guys. You know, give them a PPC or a large laser rather than a backstabber, which is what really this Locust 1E is. And it's done an admirable amount of work. It's killed the Firestarter and it's been chipping away at these guys the whole game. The other Locust is trying to catch up, but now we don't have sensor range on it, so we don't actually know what it's doing in among the buildings. So if these guys had a mission to pull us away from the base while one of them went in and did something, they've succeeded. At the moment, we're just fighting for survival. And look at these chances to hit. The best I've got is a 50 with a medium laser. However, that means nothing to Stovepipe, who takes the shot and makes it. And this Locust is almost dead. I was actually hoping for a close combat attack here, but I just decided to run in and fire point blank to try and get his best chance of hit as I can. Obviously with the medium lasers. Torso. That's at 50% of its armament gone. It's only got a 45 damage off a strike now. And I think I'm really lucky here that it decides to shoot at the trebuchet. Oh no, it does shoot at the Shadowhawk, okay. But on the right hand side, which still has some armor. However, there goes the leg. And that's Stovepipe injured. Still don't know what this Locust is doing. For the first time in the campaign, Lionheart's going to make a close combat attack. He's just too hot to do anything else. And he misses. Of course he misses. Who wouldn't miss but Lionheart? And because of the knockdown and the loss of the leg, the Shadowhawk actually has such huge penalties to movement, it can't get out of that square. So all I can really do is shoot at it. I'll use the focus to gain the bonus to hit. I've got 95s with the medium laser and the SRM2. And I can just turn on the spot to make sure I've got coverage. And he makes the 15% chance to hit AC5 shot to kill him. And there's a locust reduced to a pile of rubble. So now there's only one enemy left. Still don't know where it is though. I was going to reserve, then I realized there's no point. And I can jump a little bit further than I can walk on one leg. I'm just making sure my right hand side is facing him if he comes at us from the buildings.
Yes, Commander. On my way.
Oh, I've finally detected the locust again. It's coming up the road. So it's gone from the buildings around and back up the road. Takes a speculative shot at the trebuchet. If we can get good shots on it here, it's all over. It's got 4 evasion though, which is pretty nasty. Optimum range for all of his guns, but the chances to hit are terrible. Not optimum range for the LRMs actually, but I never fired the LRMs at optimum range. Go for the alpha strike. Miss. Miss, miss, everything misses.
Failed to connect.
However, that's down to 15% penalty to hit. The trebuchet is running completely heat free, so why not go for the alpha strike? And it's enough. We kill the locust and we manage to complete the mission. But it leaves us in a bad situation. We're down 2 mechs. We've most likely failed our mission objective by moving away from the buildings and leaving that locust there for long enough. And we now have to deal with that in the thread, which is coming up next. Thanks for watching.